Good morning, everybody. Curtis Wilkerson here with Inside Arkansas and the pod at the Palace. Just a couple more days until the Razorbacks get back on the hardwood. I can't wait. I haven't been so excited for a preview all season, but this North Carolina A&T one tomorrow morning, look out. I'm fired up. I'm ready. Seriously, ready to see these dudes play basketball. It's kind of weird how you think about football teams. They have a week between every game, and you don't think that much about it. Basketball, man, when they go away from playing, a couple, 3 times a week, you start getting a little bit antsy. Come on now, get back out there. At any rate, listen, we got to talk about the SEC and where the Arkansas fits into the picture here, into the equation. I'm still going to do my revised predictions. I'm going to save that for, I think, the holiday break, just to talk about, SEC finish and, standings, power ratings, whatever the hell you want to call it. But man, where does Arkansas stand right now in a league that, it seems like they're doing something, or on the verge of doing something that's just unprecedented, right, folks? There are no bad teams in this conference, not a single one. Now, there are some that I think are overachieving a little bit right now, a couple that are probably underachieving. Arkansas might be in that category, but my goodness, there's 16 squads truly capable of making the NCAA tournament. I believe that. Now, it's not going to happen, not everybody, but I think a pretty good illustration. Did everyone see Joe Lenardi's most recent bracketology? He put it out earlier in the week, I think on Tuesday. He had 13 freaking SEC teams in the field, and he had LSU and Vanderbilt as like his next 4 outs, like everybody but South Carolina. And this is before South Carolina got a top 25 win over Clemson on Tuesday. It's insane. Everybody's a threat. Arkansas currently he has as a 9 seed facing Maryland, and then they'd face Kentucky in the second round, which I don't think that's even allowable until the second weekend by bracketing rules. But I also don't know how things have changed with the Pac-12 going away. You're just naturally going to start getting more SEC teams, more Big 12 teams, whatever. Maybe there's something to that. I don't know. But I thought you couldn't have, conference matchups until the second weekend. I'm going to have to go look at it, because I don't know how you avoid it. Frankly, if you're going to have 13 SEC teams in there, it's absolutely nuts. But, heck, he's got Kentucky, Auburn, and Tennessee all as 1 seeds. 3 of the 4 1 seeds from the SEC, and then Bama as a 2. This stuff is unheard of. It really is. It's going to come back down to earth a little bit, just because these teams are going to beat the hell out of each other once they get into league play. But my goodness, I think my guess is, because of that, because the conference probably is going to eat itself alive, and then just with the natural regression to the mean, I think the SEC is still set to set the record for the most NCAA tournament teams from a conference, which is it would be a dozen. I think a couple different leagues have done 11, and I think a 12 would be a new record. I don't know how the SEC doesn't get that many, honestly. Right now you look at it, you got 8 teams in the AP top 25 with 9, 10, and 11 as the top 3 receiving votes, Arkansas included in that category, sandwiched between Mississippi State and Missouri. It's crazy. And it's not like this is a league. I'm trying to remember what the number was that I saw. Was it like 154-20 overall or something like that? It was a crazy record. And it's not like they're just feasting on a bunch of, non-good teams. Look at the good wins for the SEC as a league. They just went on a tear over the course of the last week over the Big Ten. You think about Arkansas's win over Michigan, A&M got Purdue, Bama got Creighton, obviously that's Big East. A lot of big wins last week. And then they're, not Arkansas. I wish they were, but they're part of this equation. The SEC is 30-4 against the ACC. That's another power league. And we just talked about how South Carolina, who's potentially your worst team, if you can even say that, in the SEC, beat a top 3 ACC team in Clemson. One of the few ranked teams out of that league the other night. It's crazy. The SEC is just a casual 50-4 in December, as of this recording, Wednesday afternoon. And the losses in December was Kentucky at Clemson. Who was the other one in that challenge? Oh, Auburn at Duke. And then you had LSU at SMU. Okay. And then Texas lost to UConn. That's it. That's the 4 losses for the SEC. Sheesh. It's crazy. 15 of the 16 schools in the SEC, sorry, South Carolina still, are in the net top 60. Arkansas is at 46, and that's 13th out of the SEC teams right now. They're very close to the top 10, but it's a deep league. I was looking at KenPom just for some like the efficiency ratings. I like checking that stuff out, and now it's a little bit more relevant. I mean, we're getting pretty close to the point where all like the preseason bias and stuff that's been baked in there is kind of fizzled out, and it's just really your body of work. I think by the time we get to the start of league play, you'll pretty much have that stuff out. Overall at KenPom, Arkansas is 12th in the SEC. They're ahead of Missouri, LSU, Vanderbilt, and South Carolina. This is before, again, I'm recording this on Wednesday during the day, and Michigan, Oklahoma play Wednesday night. So that could obviously change things. I'm very interested to see that because I'm still not sure how for real Oklahoma is. I want to see them against a like opponent against Michigan. I'm looking forward to that game. Anyway, Arkansas is 14th in the SEC in offensive efficiency, which is low. They're getting better. They're still top 60 out of 360 some odd teams nationally. So it's not like they're bad offensively. I think we understand how this got skewed early, right? Where they were playing with 6.5 guys for a handful of games there, weren't able to keep the pedal to the metal and really blow the doors off these teams. We saw fatigue set on in that might have impacted some things in second halves. And that's the difference in 10, 12 spots in offensive efficiency. When you have still a small sample size, they've been better and better as we move forward. And I think it's going to continue to go up for this team. I don't think they're bad offensively at all. Fifth in defensive efficiency in the SEC. Arkansas is behind right now Tennessee, Auburn, Texas A&M, and Florida. Fourth in tempo. This is not a league that plays super fast, believe it or not. It's kind of crazy. You think about all the draft picks in the SEC, the athleticism, not the most up-tempo league in the country, but Arkansas is fourth. They're behind Alabama. Makes sense. Kentucky, which we know they play fast under Mark Pope, and then Vanderbilt, which it does make sense under Mark Byington because they're an undersized team this year, but those dudes get up and down the floor for sure. It's like, how does that information make you feel? I wonder, right? Because you hear all that probably, and on the surface, you're like, damn, is Arkansas a bubble team? I mean, what's going on? But then again, we're just now seeing this team start to get to full strength. I mean, we don't have to rehash it all, but we know the difference in Arkansas with a healthy and full strength Jonas Adu versus without him. Changes everything. Now we know the Big Z's missed time. We know Trevin's missed time. Nelly was injured to start the season. It's just kind of part of the deal here. At full strength, I certainly think Arkansas is quite a bit better than a lot of their metrics right now suggest. But I also think, just given what we've seen and understanding all the circumstances, probably fair with where they're at right now. I mean, what wins the SEC this season? I wonder. Because like there's some really, really good teams in this league. I mean, Auburn looks incredible. And I faded them a little bit, honestly, in the preseason because I wasn't sold on their guards. But my goodness, I mean, they look like the best team in the country right now. Alabama, obviously very good, a Final Four team with all that talent returning. They added some pieces. Tennessee, I mean, they're the number one team in the country right now. But honestly, I look up and down this league. I don't know if I see that, 16-2 team in the conference standings. League's too deep, man. It's too deep. All these teams are going to have to go on the road and play a bunch of ranked opponents. What wins this league? Like this 13-5? Get it done? If anybody finishes higher than that, I mean, that's a guaranteed 1 seed. I don't know if I see it happening. I mean, yeah, 13-5, maybe. Hell, 12-6. I mean, I'm being serious here. I think going 500, going 9-9 in the SEC is a lock for the NCAA tournament. Anyone who does it, I think, gets in. If you look at this point, like most teams just have another game or two of non-conference play. Like unless, I think South Carolina's 8-3. I think they're the 1-3 loss team in the SEC right now. So like if they lost both of their next 2 games, I don't know who they play, but they go to 8-5, they might have to do a little bit more than that, but I don't know. I think 500 gets anybody in. Like if Arkansas, for example, assuming they don't have a slip up against North Carolina, A&T, or Oakland, if they go 8-10 in the SEC, they're in, period. A case could be made for some of these teams to go 7-11 in SEC play and make the NCAA tournament. I know that sounds crazy, but it's not unprecedented. Like we've seen it with like the Big 12, which has been the best league in the country last few years. They've had some teams in situations like that have gotten in, and it's just how good the SEC is this year. So, and not just the Arkansas fan base, but anyone in this conference right now. I think if you're looking at it, and you're into February and you're, a game or two under 500, you might be a little bit disappointed in that, but I wouldn't panic because the bar is just set a little bit differently than it has been in the past. It's nuts. Real quick, maybe the teams I think are going to come down to earth a little bit in the SEC, and then some that I think will rise up and replace. Georgia and Vandy, I think, stand out to me right away as teams that might come back down to earth a little bit. Don't get it twisted, though. Both of them are vastly improved. I think they're both better teams than they were last year. I just don't know that they're at the level of a lot of these other teams in the top half of the league to be able to sustain that grind for 18 full games. They're going to pick off some teams they probably shouldn't. I firmly believe that. But in terms of just overall top to bottom talent, depth, I'm not sure if they're there quite yet. I mean, I like some of the pieces Georgia has, though. I wouldn't be surprised if I'm wrong about them. Like Asa Newell, the freshman, really, really good. Silas Demery, Blue Kane in the backcourt. They got some players over there now. So we'll see about those two, but those will be two that kind of jump right off the top at me. Mentioned Oklahoma. I wonder about them. Again, I'm really anxious to see them, but we will already know by the time you guys listen to this, like how they look against Michigan. Oklahoma kind of does this every year under Porter Moser. If you go back and think about all those games, the what they call that, the Cardinal and Crimson Classic in Tulsa at the BOK Center, nearly every time they went over there, Oklahoma was ranked. But then when's the last time they made the NCAA tournament and did anything? So usually what happens is they get off to a great start, pick up a nice win or two. They wind up ranked, and then they kind of tank a little bit in league play. And the Big 12 was a tough league. Well, so is the SEC. So I wonder if we're going to see that. I think their guards are better. I don't know if they've got the front court to hold up in the SEC. Time will tell. But just thinking about teams that might come down to earth a little bit once we get into league play. So there's another one for me. Missouri, like absolutely a better team than last season. Shout out to Dennis Gates. He's improved that roster. He absolutely has. They are not going to go winless in SEC play again. But I don't know if they have the horses to be a top half of this conference team. Could they be a bubble team? Sure. I mean, we saw them beat Kansas. That was an impressive win for them. The rest of the schedule, though, it's been really, really light, like really light. So it makes you wonder, okay, how are they going to hold up when they're playing two ranked opponents every single week? So we'll see about them. South Carolina, LSU, I think might struggle a little bit, just my opinion. I guess what I'm saying here, you rattle off those teams there. That's about 6 teams. I'm very confident Arkansas is going to wind up finishing in the top 10 of this league. And I'm sure you're hearing that and you're going, well, great. I freaking hope so. But that's a lock for the NCAA tournament, right? You do that, you're in, no questions. How healthy do they stay for start? Like there's obviously a lot of factors there with Arkansas. But in terms of the talent, the pieces that they have, they belong, I think, in that top half of the conversation in the league. And then you wonder about some other teams like Texas, for example. It's a team that I'm just not sold on so far. For starters, it's been a little bit weird. Now they have a dynamic freshman in Trey Johnson. They need to get Tremont Mark fully healthy and going. I like Arthur Kaluma. I like some of their pieces, but they haven't really been that impressive so far. And they really let an opportunity slip away from them. They kind of had a reeling UConn team on their home floor, and they just did not bring it at all. So we'll see what happens with them. Like Florida, for example. I mean, my goodness, 3 of the 4 undefeated teams left in the country in the SEC, Florida is one of them. And it was one of those deals where they just were beating the hell out of a bunch of bad teams, but hadn't played anybody. Well, then they just beat North Carolina. They had a big lead. They blew it, but they wound up winning that game. Now, North Carolina is, I'm not sure how good they are, but we know how talented they are. That's a good win for Florida. So it validates them a little bit. Be another team. We'll see how they hold up. But a lot of people were really, really high on them coming into the year. So far, looks like they called it. So we'll see about those guys. It feels like to me right now, that Auburn, Tennessee, Alabama are kind of the class of the league. And I'm not taking a shot at Kentucky on that. They've been phenomenal. Okay, they really have. I mean, shout out to Mark Pope. He's squeezing every ounce of potential out of that roster. They're really doing a great job. I do think that there's going to be a little bit of regression with them. Tournament lock, really good season, high seed, absolutely. I think they're in that next tier, though, behind those three teams. I think Arkansas is in there, too, to be fair. I think that's where they're trying to what they're trying to play into right now. Then you get to the tournament, whoever gets hot, matchups, whatever, you know how that stuff goes. But can Arkansas get into that next tier with, Kentucky, with Texas A&M, teams like that? The Mississippi schools are interesting. Chris Beard and Chris Jans, those squads are rolling right now. How does it hold up in this league? We'll find out. But right now, I kind of feel like Arkansas is anywhere in that 4 or 5 to 8-ish range in the league. And if that's where you're at, the funny thing about it is, if you think about Lunardi's projections there, a team that finishes, third or fourth in the SEC standings will get a 1 or 2 seed in the NCAA tournament. If you finish, 5th through 8th, you might wind up as a 4 through 6 seed in the NCAA tournament. That's just kind of how it works. So it's almost important to have a little bit of that kind of perspective to help you balance yourself out when you're talking about this. Because there might be times where I'm like, hey, Arkansas passed so-and-so. They're up to 7th in the SEC standings. If I'm talking about that in February and you're like, oh, why are you throwing them a parade, dude? That's a good thing. It's probably a good place to be. So it's fascinating. It's crazy because I remember, it's not that long ago where the SEC, they were just trying to get 3-4 teams in the NCAA tournament. And then all of a sudden you just see the resources that have been poured into SEC basketball just to kind of rival what they've been doing on the football standpoint of things. Look at the coaches in this league, loaded. A lot of the best coaches in the country are in the SEC. And now the NIL is a thing. You already know that, the SEC was already kind of leading the way in terms of draft picks and, 5-star freshmen coming in, draft picks going out. And now it's just on steroids with this new era, NIL transfer portal. It's a lot of fun. I don't know how much fun it is for the coaches. I don't know how much fun it is for Cal. He talks about it all the time where he's like, man, I'm looking up and down the SEC and I'm trying to find the wins. And I wonder, are we the win? And I think probably 15 other coaches in the conference feel exactly that way. It's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be a roller coaster ride. I'm really looking forward to it. But just want to do a little bit of a reset there to see kind of, where's Arkansas fitting in this pecking order right now? And then we'll reevaluate it down the road. But appreciate you guys as always for tuning in. I know it's kind of been a long week without basketball, but we'll get back to it tomorrow. Preview this North Carolina A&T game. Should be a lot of fun. See the Razorbacks get out there and hope to pick up their 10th win of the season. So make sure if you're not tapped in already, get subscribed to Inside Arkansas YouTube channel. Check out our written content over at InsideArkansas.com. And I will be back with you in the morning for Curtis Wilkerson with Pod at the Palace. See you later. Everybody have a good one.